r/ask Reddit. What is something that shouldn't be romanticized but is? The starving artist lifestyle. Docu. Rent. The whole you must suffer to produce great work mentality is so ducking toxic. Yay, great adversity has always spawned great art, but you don't get to ducking shame me for being economically independent and successful. I saw an article on some tragic artist where just about everything in his life was awful, but his work was amazing. They talked about the brief time in his life when things were okay and said something like, surprisingly, the work from this period of his life is considered his best. No doubt. While knowing what it's like to struggle can sometimes help improve art through new perspective or strong emotional content, being in the process of suffering doesn't make your art better. Being stressed and sad and miserable doesn't leave you with the time or energy you need to work at your full potential. War. Came here to say this. Just got out of the Air Force after 6 years and my nephew wants to join the Marines because he thinks it's like Halo and all badassery and shooting. I'm about ready to beat the stupid out of that boy. He can join the military. I'll endorse that. But not with such a ducked up idea of what he's signing up for. There's no heroes in war. Just people who just want to go home killing other people who just want to go home. You can't blame him. It's what we love to glorify as a culture, and we love to glorify it so little boys can grow up thinking they can go overseas to kill strangers without feeling anything, and thinking they'll be rewarded for it. Street gangs and mafias. I'd like to add in cartels. Like damn, I'm ashamed to say I got morbidly curious and watched cartel executions on Live Leaks. There is some medieval torture going on in parts of the world. I'm glad I get to chill in my house like a normal guy. Hey Carlito man. That's not loco. That's just fiscal irresponsibility. Breaking up a woman's wedding because she belongs with you. The speak now or forever hold your peace part of the wedding is meant for bringing up genuine reasons why the couple cannot legally marry each other. Like if one of them is already married. It's not for dramatic proclamations of love. Bursts into the church stop. He's no man, but a stack of 3 boys. Not taking no for an answer. The way movies, rom-coms in particular, play that as romantic is pretty often reality. Thank you. My wife hates when I watch romantic comedies with her because I call this kind of thing out all the time. If a woman tells me she's not interested or doesn't want to see me, then I will never approach her again. Life's too short to go after people who are clearly not into you. Maybe she just hates that you're talking during the movie. Alcoholism. It isn't some beautiful, chiseled, thin ducker with perfect skin pulling a flask out of his pocket and taking a quick swig while he's moodily solving some dramatic mystery or whatever. It's a tidal wave of shame as your pale fingers look for the open bottle on the nightstand so you can take that first swig of the morning and stop the shakes. It's trying not to shit yourself in public because your bowels and eating habits have become so erratic. It's knowing that you stink like vodka but literally nothing you can do can get rid of the stink. It's walking into work and having co-workers say you look like shit after what you thought was a good day. It's not romantic and it's no way to live. The Don Draper having a whiskey at 11 AM smoking a hand-rolled cigarette in a tailored suit and perfect hair isn't the correct image of alcoholism. You're pretty on point with this. Edit. Sounds like I need to finish Mad Men LOL. It can start like that though, before the alcohol takes its toll on your appearance and health. Sometimes suave and sexy people drink and look cool doing it, until they get older and their faces get puffy and red, and their bodies start deteriorating. You can only cruise on youth and genetics for so long and your body has just had enough of your shit. Anxiety. Suddenly I'm seeing a whole lot of people, mainly YouTubers, pass it off as an edgy quirk. It's really frustrating. You are doing a really great job. Anxiety isn't a nice thing to live with. All you can do is be there for the other person and help them through it. I never know what I want when it hits. I wish there was an easy fix. I hate knowing others are suffering like I am. I'm not as serious as your wife because I've been dealing with this since I was 7/8, so I have coping methods. But I have my moments. If you can, get her into therapy. That will really help her in the long run. I need to go but it's too expensive and the NHS won't subsidize it for me. If love to have someone to talk to about it, but I just keep it to myself. I will say that a lot of this comes from people thinking that being an anxious person is the same as anxiety. I feel anxiety, and many other mental emotional issues, are often misrepresented. I'll take the ironic one and say relationships in general. We expect way too much out of relationships. Thanks in no small part to our media. No one should expect a relationship to magically fulfill them, make them permanently happy, fix all of their issues, or force them to learn how to love themselves. People that expect this can have major relationship issues later down the road when they find out that no person is able to fill these holes in their own life. Relationships can be great and having an SO is a good thing, but if you can't be enough without one, you'll never be enough with one. More than that, even good and healthy relationships will take a lot of hard work and involve a few fights. A lot of movies and TV shows have very idealized relationships and show fights as abnormal and the first sign of a failing relationship. After I got divorced, I had such a hard time with life and was so unhappy. I would meet other people and go on dates and would be temporarily happy for a while, but always went back to sad. After I finally truly realized and accepted what you said, my life got better tenfold. I think truly knowing that you're just fine alone can make you a better partner, and it sure as hell makes life easier. You tend to respect yourself more and make better choices about who you're going to actually give your precious time to. Not sleeping. Some people think of it as a badge of honor and something to brag about to others, like, oh, you're tired. I only got an hour of sleep. It's not really great or healthy at all. I sleep most often about 20 hours during a work week. At its best, I'm exhausted by 10 AM. At its worst, I can barely read. It screws up your whole life. Make sure to get 8 hours every night. Sleep is probably as valuable as eating. I have to wake up at 5 to get to classes, work on time, and I live very far away from where all that happens, so I get back pretty late. I'm trying to fix it and I track my sleep when I can remember to turn it on. Link https:// Google com/view id equals 1w recugt yfpi clixvem kqoo jock vdi headed. More details. I'm an insomniac. If I don't take trazodone, I stay up for days. My best friend got into a mini argument with her boyfriend over this, because he said he was jealous of being able to stay awake for days on end. But she corrected him, saying, rightly, that after day 1 I'm a complete mess, and by the end of day 2, I'm hallucinating, and I don't have any extra energy. This really scares me, because lack of sleep is linked to Alzheimer's and dementia, and I've been this way for a lot of my life. Pretty much since I became a teenager. What's worse is that I saw my favorite person, the woman who raised me the most, disintegrate in less than a year from the disease, and it's always in the back of my mind. Never changing an opinion. The man who views the world at 50 the same as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. Muhammad Ali. This drives me nuts. It's even worse when you or someone else try to calmly and systematically change an opinion that's objectively wrong or misguided, and then their response is, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree. No, Linda. I don't agree that your kid should give mine chickenpox because you think the mercury in the vaccines will give them autism. Stalking. It's not romantic, it's terrifying. If I ever wake up with someone I haven't even kissed sitting on the end of my bed and watching me sleep, I'm calling the police and screaming the place down. That is not cute. Every breath you take I'll be watching you, the police, singing about creepers. The Joker and Harley Quinn's romance. Too many people really don't understand the Harley Quinn character. They pay more attention to her looks than to her background. Holly is a domestic abuse victim with a severe case of Stockholm Syndrome. Joker physically abuses Holly on a frequent basis, especially when his plans fall through. He takes his anger out on her through physical abuse, and the Joker is a murderous, sadistic, women-beating psychopath who gets joy by doing harm to others. Nothing about that relationship is romantic, sweet, or charming. At one point he locks her in a freezer full of corpses in her outfits and says, you weren't the first, you definitely won't be the last. Jesus. That's chilling. Loneliness. Don't think many people understand that hollow feeling in your chest when you've been with any human contact for weeks. Or how your chest feels like it's caving in after you try to reach out and make contact only to be dismissed as annoying or needy. Chronic loneliness is so bad for your health, mental and physical. I've had this problem for a while now. I've been going to therapy and slowly socializing more, and honestly, it's so important. I had a lot of unhealthy attitudes to myself, to socializing and to others that I've worked through, and still am working through. Anxiety and loneliness isn't charming or relatable. It's painful. It's okay to share your weaknesses, but don't make them part of your identity. The goal should be to break free of them. Falling in love with a bad boy and hoping he'll change his ways for you, or bad girl for that matter. Also, giving your 100% for someone who won't even take a second look at you, hoping that they'll realize how amazing you are and fall for you. Also, mindless loyalty. If someone has done you wrong, you're not obliged to stay and give out second chances. I find it insulting to enter a relationship in hopes of changing them. If you're not happy with how they are, then find someone else. Mental illness. Came here to say this. Women marry me because they like my backstory. This is the second time a marriage came down around me because they didn't understand that I'm not normal, no matter how much I told them. The first wasn't old enough. The second was too coddled. How does someone who lived happily with their parents and only dated casual till 30 understand addiction and me trying to hang myself because I thought we were over? Both times they couldn't understand what I'd been through. Not for lack of trying in the case of the latter. They'd just never dealt with shit as ducked as my head is every day, and didn't understand that having been repeatedly traumatized meant that I worried about them getting raped if they were out drinking without me because it happened to me so often when I did, and thought I was accusing them of cheating. First one did constantly and I never brought it up in the divorce except for as grounds. Second one didn't as far as I know and probably never would. It's just not her. Because they didn't understand that my irrational paranoia is not rational. I can't control it. And coming home at 3 instead of 6 would have kept me from having a panic attack and me resenting them for a week. I can't separate out past harms from current in my head. I have the emotional sophistication of a toddler with the vocabulary of a grad student. And people don't get that being able to change careers and excel doesn't mean I can get through a day without them saying they love me, or by never letting myself need reassurance from anyone. My PTSD stole my life, and them saying they'd hold my hand through it while I did addiction counseling and therapy when I told them what I was going to need, then bailing when shit got tough. Well, that set me back years and I don't have the energy to start over. Not again. I let them take my sanity in the divorce. I give up. Life over. Suicide. People imagine that others will realize their crime against you and everyone will become permanently gloomy after they learn you're dead. Nope, that is not the case. The spell will remain a couple of days and then there will recovery encouragement among friends and acquaintances and people will move on. The only one hurt is your family, edit, and people you're a significant part of life, who care about you, edit 2. Come on people, I'm not talking about how all the suicide cases are like. I gave a scenario on a romanticized suicide thought. You can tell that at least. 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. Horrible, irresponsible show. It's a suicide fantasy. A girl commits revenge suicide because she has a tough year at school. You know, to teach all the bad people a lesson. And she gets to narrate and observe as voiceover while everybody suffers due to her death. What a dangerous way to portray suicide to teenagers. What teen doesn't have the thought at some point? Duck all of them. What if I just killed myself? Then they'd be sorry. Not a good notion to reinforce in a TV show targeted at 14-year-olds. Overworking yourself. People almost bragging that they have 2 full-time jobs, go to school and have 3 kids. Like, no, that's not really something to feel proud about. It's not healthy for your mind or body. Don't get me wrong. Being lazy is not good, but it is not good to work yourself to death. Back in my day, I worked 3 awful jobs to support your mother and you don't hear me complaining. You did complain, and that sounds like a shit life. Yes, I hate those stories. You're literally complaining right now. Romeo and Juliet is actually a really ducked up story. It's a tragedy, not a romance despite how some people treat it. It starts with a rape joke. Mercutio being a bro and trying to get his buddy some rebound sex. Then in a move that makes Twilight look good, they spend the rest of the play talking about how in love they are but nothing about why they love each other. A great tragedy that basically warns about the perils of teenagers going overboard in a relationship, and it's used as the example of two love stories. The other one I run into is people going they were warned and everything. They didn't listen to the adults and look what happened. Yep, that's the point. Kids are stupid and they're going to run off and hump. Are you so stupid that you'd rather they be dead than be humping your enemy? The mafia, especially my Italian American friends who brag about having family that are connected. My grandfather is in federal prison for extortion, and I promise you there is nothing romantic about it. My mother once told me she had a wedding invitation signed by most of the local mob. This was 25-30 years after her and dad got married, and immediately followed it up with they're all dead or in jail now. That kinda put it in perspective about what the eventual fate would be. There's a recent movie about gangsters called Live by Night with Ben Affleck. Not that great, but it was something to watch on a flight. Near the end, Affleck's character shows some remorse about killing rivals, and his sidekick comments something along the lines, none of these guys expected to see 40 inches. That's what more gangster/crime movies should show. Living in a violent world can lead to very short lives. Marriage, not the fact of getting married itself, but rather rushing it. Everywhere I look, people are either marrying right out of college or lamenting the fact they aren't. Stop it. I'm Indian, and in my culture not getting married ASAP is seen as some kind of social taboo. I'm visiting after a decade and all people can comment on is my unmarried status. I come from a pretty traditional Mexican family and am basically all but called a slut. How many girls do you need to sleep with before you become a man? As if my life is some Hugh Hefner fantasy every night. It ducking iced. Mostly as I grew older, like most, you start hearing truths. Who cheated on who abuses who, and who's an addict. I mostly feel it's people being pissed I didn't jump down the well also and pump out 3 kids before I knew who the duck I was as a person. My grandma finally laid off after one interaction years back. What if I die and never see you get married? What if you die seeing me unhappy because you needed validation? A woman running away from her fiancé as the altar. So many commercials, movies, and TV shows. Maybe don't agree to marry someone and then let everyone spend a ton of money and plan an entire wedding if you don't want to marry him. Lives of serial killers. Vice interviewed the girls on Twitter who obsesses over them like they would for a boy band. Like voting for who is the hottest and saying who's they'd love to date. Crazy thing is they also say fire feminists despite worshipping guys who slaughtered and hated women specifically. The online true crime community is terrifying. I've seen people making playlists, art, fanfiction, etc. about getting with these serial killers. The Columbine killers in particular seem to get a lot of attention. Maybe because they were the same age as these teens? It's scary. Pirates are often romanticized in books, movies and television shows, but they were pretty horrible people. They caused lots of damage and pillaged their way across the seas. To be fair, a lot of the crew of the ships they pillaged didn't sign up for it. They were taken, told they had volunteered, and put on the first boat out to work. Getting attacked by pirates meant being freed. These pirates didn't live under much better conditions if at all, but at least they were there by choice. And now, after being liberated in a sense, the crew of the old ship was too. Pillaged their way across the sea. No, this contradicts your point, but I can't read that phrase without adding a pirate accent. Stalking. That is stalking in romantic comedies. It's always seen as cute as the awkward guy who falls in love with whatever quirky girl is having a tough time following her around town. He always gets in misadventures as he tails her. But, honestly, stalking is creepy. I don't care what pop song you play in the background. Every breath you take. Every move you make. OMG, I'm so ADD. Ugh. My OCD is acting up. Today was so up and down. I'm really bipolar. Plus saying shit like oh ADD must be nice since you're so spontaneous, crazy, random, whatever. Duck you. It's really not that great. The insomnia sucks. Having you repeat something 3 times because I can't focus on what you're saying is annoying. And if something isn't in the now, then I ignore it until it's probably too late. Makes long-term planning nearly impossible. I'm bipolar and it really annoys me when people say stuff like that. It's so much more long term than that. I can go months feeling like a newlywed and then suddenly feel like shit while being totally disinterested in my hobbies. Really all the classical symptoms of depression. Then only to go back into a state of mania. It's a vicious cycle that hurts your friendships and your sanity, and it's quite frustratingly misunderstood. Eating disorders. Specifically anorexia. So many people think it's a diet and it's beautiful and desirable. It's not. It's terrifying and dangerous and deadly, and I wish more people realized that. I recently saw a film about anorexia where the main characters moves into a house where a group of anorexics live on their own under the supervision of a psychologist as a treatment method. One of the girls in the house is pregnant, and she really wants to keep the kid and is trying her hardest to keep eating in order to not lose him. But in the end the need to purge herself is too strong and she ends getting a natural abortion. I think it made a very clear point about how fucked up this disease can be and the extent it can affect the ones who suffer it. When I was 17 I dated a girl that I met in a group therapy I was in who was recovering from anorexia. She showed me pictures of when she was near death before her parents checked her into a mental health clinic. It was hard seeing those pictures and hearing her talk about how hard the recovery process was for her. It's definitely not something that should be romanticized. For some reason, Reddit loves depression. My dad has depression. You don't realize how much it affects your life until you grow up and talk to friends about childhood. Having a farm. It's a lot of hot, sweaty work that doesn't care if you're sick or tired. My college free-spirited friends all wanted to live on one because it was simple. The past. So tired of people talking about music, movies, culture, youth, etc. was so much better in the past. I live by the lyrics of Gorgel Bordello. There were never any good old days. They are today. They are tomorrow. It's just a stupid thing we say. Cursing tomorrow with sorrow. Speeding through traffic to catch a loved one, car chases in movies, speeding with a sports car to impress someone. Basically any traffic violation that is romanticized in movies and puts a whole lot of people in danger. Not taking care of yourself. I stayed up all night working on this project doesn't mean you're some Einstein scribbling equations on your walls. Pushing through the pain doesn't mean panting while sweat rolls off your perfectly toned muscles. It means falling over halfway through a workout because you tore something important and didn't pay attention to your body going hey, ducking stop it. I think if you grow up being middle class, poor, I am well under the standard of living or whatever it's called, and have been for maybe the last 4 years. I've been far worse than I've been now, but I'm lucky in that I've only had myself to support, open bracket, in my experience. Some people romanticize being in your 20s and broke. It's not fun not being able to afford the subway, or healthy groceries. Black beans and rice go a long way though, or seeing friends. Being poor sucks. Happily ever afters. I say this because it's not what you get out of a relationship, it's what you both put into it. And shit happens constantly, and as a couple you work through the shit together. If everything went good and happy forever, then that's just unrealistic. All the good ones were already set, so traveling to foreign countries like it's your personal journey to enlightenment. If you can't get enlightened from your living room, you sure as hell aren't going to find it in India or the top of a mountain. Americans act like the world is somehow their personal ashram of spiritual growth. It's not. Those are countries where real people live and die, day in and day out. Some of them have crushing poverty and real, serious social issues. First of all, one privileged American with a holier-than-thou attitude isn't going to show up in Haiti and fix it by passing out Bibles or whatever. And you aren't going to find your spirituality on a crowded street in Delhi, either. Stop acting like being an American gives you some God-given right to be enlightened by a culture you actually disdain and look down on and are just passing through. Like some all-you-can-eat buffet of spiritual growth so you can then go back to your privileged American lives and act like you did something and feel self-righteous and superior. But if you really have to, enlightenment is in Iceland on the side of a volcano overlooking a black sand beach and the North Sea surrounded by sheep in the cold quiet of the dawn, where God lives. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.